Hello and welcome to another anime lore and theory video. I'm Shergok, your host, and today we are going to take a closer look at the mass banning of anime streaming websites and anime sites with more adult-themed material on it, and how I think of this internet anime purge. But before we're going to take a closer look at any of this, let me quickly thank my Patreons for supporting this channel, as well as say thanks to all users of the YouTube thanks function for making one-time donations. And with that said, let's get to the topic at hand. Ah yes, single-handedly surfing the web, the favorite sport of the Hikikunit. Seriously though, after numerous illegal anime streaming sites were taken offline in recent weeks, and this week, apparently a website that sounds like the Pokemon Entei, with an H and an N somewhere in its name, has also been shut down, at least briefly. And I'm using this general attention and awareness that the topic now receives as an opportunity to make a video about whether these recent massive crackdowns of online piracy, strange word by the way, will finally put an end to copyright infringements on the internet, and how such infringements arise in the first place and why. Currently, many anime right holders, both Japanese and international companies, are very successful at getting unlicensed websites and providers, including those offering 18+ content, banned worldwide. And this applies even if these sites also offer legal content, as long as the illegal content predominates. And that's a general trend anyway. And again, the latest example of such a ban, as mentioned, the Entei website with an H and an N somewhere in its name, which I won't describe or explain further here because of obvious reasons, we are on YouTube after all. But again, this anime website focused on content that you can consume single-handedly, pun intended, was also hit recently. And the reason for the shutdown seems to be that it involved 18+ content of copyrighted material that engages in activities not approved or allowed by the copyright holders, and sometimes even by the legislators in general. And these actions their character are depicted in apparently don't align with the family-friendly image of some brands, which can also be the reason for taking actions against such sites in general. Now, the answer to whether such bans can stop or even reduce copyright infringements is, at least in my opinion in the long term, a clear no. Because the root problem that lead to copyright violations, at least in my view, is not being addressed here. All these websites are just symptoms, not causes. So even if copyright holders continue to go after non-allowed and non-official streaming services for regular anime and for, let's call it, fan art with minimal or just absent clothing, and many websites will go offline again in the end, they will achieve absolutely nothing. Because when looking at the copyright aspect more closely, I think anime and manga piracy is basically like illegal video game downloads before Steam existed, or film and music file sharing before Spotify and Netflix existed. It's primarily a service problem. If, for example, someone wants to buy a product, but due to their place of residence has to wait months, if not years, before they can legally purchase it, or if they aren't allowed to buy it legally at all, this naturally fuels a huge black market, especially when a product is legally available elsewhere and may have already been advertised in the nation that you reside in but can't be purchased there. And of course, if there's no legal offering to meet the demand, then the demand go to the black market. And that's particularly unfortunate for anime because anime and manga in general is celebrated by the fanbase, but they often have no legal or at least timely way to access the content. And we have something now called globalization, which means that if an anime episode becomes a hit, or even the entire anime takes off, Germans, French people, Americans, Mexicans and Filipinos are all talking about it online at the same time, along with countless other nationalities. And they don't want to wait months or years for the anime to legally arrive in their country and in the streaming service that they have legal access to. And if you want to join the conversation online, you either have to watch it illegally or you just can't say anything. And that's a shame because there's such a huge market for anime that could bring in a lot of extra money if people were actually allowed to buy the products legally, on time and at a fair price, without much hassle, without having to order from abroad and wait 6 weeks if customs are in a good mood today. And if this were the case, way more money would come in. Money that anime studios could use to increase their profits, pay the employees better, or enable shorter working hours with the same salary. And as the example of Steam shows, software piracy is and likely always has been a service problem. If anime, manga and novels were released on Steam, like for example the ebooks of Overlord or the anime, meaning on a single unified central hub, where all seasons and all media can be purchased, not just about Overlord, but about of generally any other anime as well, instead of across 1,000 different shops or streaming platforms that no one subscribes to at all at once just to watch a single anime season. And if there were at least a somewhat decent, maybe just an AI translation available in each country's language, like as a simulcast, the majority of the illegal offerings would be wiped out. Not because the internet has been suddenly cleansed of illegal content, but because people would rather go to Steam than any other site. And this is more or less proven, or at least well supported and documented. Because even Epic Games, offering free games like GTA 5, Star Wars Battlefront, or the entire Batman Arkham series, couldn't manage to pull people away from Steam permanently. So therefore I think people would, out of sheer convenience, prefer to watch and read manga, novels or anime on Steam, rather than look for them on other sites, even if they are available for free elsewhere. Again, Steam and the Epic Games Store have shown this. And even in parts of Eastern Europe, especially areas outside of or formerly outside of the European Union, which had what I call a very interesting attitude towards paying for games, Steam has not only entered the market successfully, but gained ground and a loyal player base in these countries. Countries once considered a paradise for free downloading all kinds of games. And this happened simply because the services on Steam is better and more convenient. And from a server perspective, at least in my opinion, Steam could easily handle offering anime seasons, considering that modern games often take up tens or even hundreds of gigabytes of space. And apparently no one keeps the entire Steam library on their computer at once at all times, and they just install and uninstall as they play or stop playing, so there's always a huge bit of downloading and streaming going on. And I really hope that the anime, manga and novel industry will wake up and start offering their content on a single unified central platform that is available worldwide simultaneously, so that everyone can access it, even if it's not Steam but its own central platform run by a Japanese conglomerate or something like that. And by that I don't mean 10 different partner portals and streaming services per country that have the different seasons at the same or a different time, that have, one season is on streaming service A and the second season on streaming service Z, and the third season will appear on A and Z and Y and W all at the same time, but only half because for some copyright reason. Just one single unified streaming service would be enough, would be all that is needed. I mean, really something massive, as Steam for anime. And again, so much for the copyright aspect. And when it comes to the third leg, awakening animations or illustration content that contains copyrighted characters doing things that were not originally intended by the author, such content probably won't be curbed simply by shutting down websites. And this is on one hand because now anyone has the ability to use paid or even free local run AI image generation to make any character do basically anything. And this technology, especially since it is run offline increasingly now, or just via apps, cannot be removed anymore from society without an apocalyptic technological regression. And it will likely continue to grow in scope, precision, quality, and above all, availability. Because with better hardware and software, the barrier to entry will be lower, and the necessary technology know-how to enter this process will be increasingly minimalized. And again, in the case of third-party application, it already is very, very easy, with basically no understanding required to create all sorts of images. And again, all of this comes atop to the accessibility of non-AI driven creation tools for 18+ content, such as the drawing software Krita or the 3D animation software Blender, aka the only reason Overwatch is relevant today. And all of this comes atop to the most basic of adult media creation tools: a pen and a paper. And even if there was a complete ban on all 18+ content that rouses the third leg into action, there are still existing trade structures, especially those found around train stations and city parks, that could easily satisfy this demand. And I'd like to emphasize that there's even in prisons certain trade activities, certain substances that are coming in and being consumed there that are illegal. But they can't crack down on it. All the guards can do is drive up the prices and sometimes reduce availability for a few weeks or maybe a month or so at a time. And in general society, neither of these approaches would even work for images, text and videos with 18+ content, because for example a single 18+ fanfiction can be copied as many times as you want, with no loss of quality. It will also be always there, no matter how often the person buying such a thing would consume it. And that being said, I'm not suggesting that illegal content shouldn't be fought against, and of course I distance myself from any illegal content, no matter what nature takes. And I'm also aware that consuming and particularly over-consuming 18+ content can have significant personal disadvantages. However, I am not an expert in this field, so I can't make any specific claims, and I don't want to offer medical advice here, but I felt it was important to mention this for the sake of completeness. But all I'm saying is that the battle is a fight against windmills, and doesn't even address the core issue at hand, pun intended. And with that, we move on to the distribution. And the reason for such a high demand, in my opinion, is twofold. And the first is a general societal issue, because normally people spend time together. Typically you grow up with a father, a mother and a few siblings, meaning you practice social interactions daily. And in a normal society, not only do you have siblings, but your neighbors also have 3 or 4 kids on average. And you play with them, you grow up with them, and as teenagers, then you start forming the first romantic connections. And by the end of your teen years or the early 20s, like around 18 to 19 to 21, 22, then you have usually the first child. And by the mid to late 20s, you might have 2 or 3 more on their way. And remember, everything I have just described here is still absolutely normal in many parts of the world. And even in many parts of the Western world, in Japan, South Korea, Australia and New Zealand, this was also the norm until just a few decades ago, and had been the norm for the rest of humanity for basically as long as I can tell. But in the area of the only child epidemic, not only do you not have any peers in your own home, but your neighborhood consists mostly of elderly people and other only children. And if, for instance, you lack a car and therefore can't participate independently in social life, which is the case in parts of America, and by that I also mean parts of Canada and South America as well, or can't or choose not to participate in social activities, or the degrading online dating experience, then it is no wonder that many people turn to easy and very accessible alternatives. And their social reference points increasingly become these artificial peers, influencers, or most of the time characters from various media. They see them as children and as teenagers, and they grow up and age with them around. And those characters then become a substitute for their own lack of social and romantic experiences in real life. And that's why in the demographically unsustainable parts of the world, regions like the West, much of South America, parts of Asia, such as China, Japan or Vietnam, Turkey or even the Shiite theocracy of Iran, which all fail to meet the minimum demographic requirement for population self-sustainability, 2.1 kids that is, the demand for such substitute content, including for single-handed operations, is significantly higher than it would be otherwise be. Or in short, what's missing are real social contacts, and this induces a demand for substitution. But, and this is where all the big media companies come into play, in addition to this society-wide need induced because of the lack of peers, we have the ever-increasing fake social contacts via fictional characters which serve as a substitute or replacement for real-life social contacts, and they can, will and are oftentimes designed to activate the single-player mode in the bedroom, to put it in a way that's suitable for YouTube. So in addition to the broader conditions in society, many media creators, whether in the film, manga or video game industry, have realized that emotional or romantic attachment to their own copyrighted characters helps foster better consumer loyalty, and most importantly, higher revenue, particularly in games and media content created within the or for the Asian market in mind. And many characters there are highly attractive, and there are frequent instances of implied interactions between characters or between the character and the viewer. In both cases, this is referred to as fan service. And don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to ban beautiful women in anime, manga or video games, but in my opinion you can't just deliberately trigger human romantic or bodily desire in order to foster customer loyalty and sales growth, and then be surprised when the same desire that was actively cultivated by the copyright holders creates demand for satisfaction that these copyright holders won't offer. In other words, the industry has generally created a demand and consequently a market for the very content that is now showing up on websites that are increasingly being banned and taken offline due to their adult nature. To me, this is similar to the situation with powerful legal painkillers in the United States, which due to their nature have fueled a growing black market demand for controlled substances. And what makes the whole situation even more unsettling is the fact that, for instance, just as an example, South Korea has enormous problems with deepfake 18+ content of real-life everyday people. But they seemingly can't get it under control at all. And the YouTube creators of Rotten Mango made 3 very good videos about this topic, explaining the situation in more detail. But although these things run on Telegram, which unlike for example Signal, isn't even fully anonymous, the police and justice system seems powerless in this case. Yet when it comes to copyright violations, they can easily shut down numerous websites globally, not just individual chat groups, but entire websites. And I find that strange when it comes to their priorities, because again this makes it seem that the law is only looking after copyright holders and their fictional characters, and not after real people. And finally, I want to mention that as far as I know, there have been no efforts or possibilities to preserve the legal part of works on the corresponding single-handed consumption-inducing websites, again as far as I am aware of, so there's no separation. Of course, I want to emphasize this once again, the characters, manga, anime and film still belong to the creators and are not public domain, and naturally the law regarding 18+ content in each respective country still apply. And I also want to reiterate that I do not condone any illegal activities here. But as I said, the so-called piracy of media content wouldn't be a problem if you could quickly, conveniently, easily and at a fair price acquire these things. And the single-handed consumption of copyrighted characters in adult context is partially triggered by the social, cultural circumstances, but also the targeted marketing of such adult appeal by the copyright holders themselves, as well as their constant teasing of 18+ interactions and then not delivering it. Because again, this creates a demand that on the internet results in a de facto uncontrollable supply. And to circle back to the copyright question, from the time to the early 10s where Netflix first had a real hype, until the fragmentation of the greater streaming market in the late teens and early 20s, movies and series piracy wasn't much of an issue. And until then, Gen Z mostly didn't even know what file sharing was, or that you could watch videos outside of Netflix on other sites. And then the streaming market fragmented and fell apart. Fewer shows were available with just one subscription alone and prices nearly doubled or tripled. And suddenly, file sharing became a topic again. And to further hammer home my point, providers like iTunes and later Spotify are also known for being so simple and inexpensive that they largely replaced illegal music downloads and even legal private copies. I mean, how many people still have all of their songs, like all of them, on their hard drive, and how many rely on music streaming? Again, let me know it down in the comment section. And as I said, for me, anime piracy is a service problem. If you could get these things on Steam and buy on Steam within seconds, with English subtitles and the original Japanese audio, or basically they let you choose the audio and release all on the same day, and of course the manga and anime are then available in English or with English subtitles, and the light novels are also already pre-translated into English the day they are releasing, then piracy would no longer be an issue in my opinion. And yes, I know that the copyright market is insanely fragmented, with many usage rights and licenses now being split and divided multiple times over multiple nations. But that's not yet the case for new content. So if you put all new content on Steam, or at least on a central platform made in Japan, piracy for new anime wouldn't be a problem anymore. As anime and manga fans, we have a memory span of about 1 season or 3 months anyway, and after that 90% of the audience isn't interested in old content anymore. And of course, again, copyright holders can enforce their copyright and shut down non-compliant sites. But sites that offer the same thing will reform and grow until they become large enough to attract the attention from those who will destroy them. A bit like the Leviathan-like monster known as Sin from Final Fantasy X. But just like the cycle of sin, destruction, defeat and rebirth could be broken at the end of the game, I think just putting everything on Steam would achieve the same effect. And again, it's not about copyright holders not being allowed to prevent re-uploads of their copyrighted material, but about how just striking them down will not accomplish much in the long run, while putting anime and manga on Steam would drain much of the viewer base of those non-official sites away, leaving them essentially to be superfluous. Okay, and that's just my opinion on what could be done to reduce anime and manga piracy and why, at least from my point of view. Because this fight against windmills won't achieve anything. It's like a hydra. Cut off one head and 10 new will take its place. And with that said, please check out my German channel, my fantasy channel, and if you don't want to listen to my voice or accent but are still interested in the things I have to say, I've made an AI channel where I use AI voiceovers for my videos, so please check it out as well. These channels are linked down in the video description. Also, please check out my Patreon if you want to support me beyond just leaving a like or sub. And with that said, now it's your turn. Let me know your thoughts and ideas about the video and about the copyright and the 18+ issue down in the comment section. And while you type, I say thank you very much for watching, thanks to my Patreons for supporting this channel, and special thanks to Ada Daddy Ada, ASK, Bad Guy Ye, Bad Burrito 316, Bezer, Ben C, Brandon D, Chrissy, Crowley 0221, Sia, Crystal Prime, Dead Slime, Death is Mercy, Deathless Dragonlord, Demon Xenomorph 1987, Devin Downen, Ding Dong, Dan Pep, Dragonlord Placido Saxophone, Duckwagon, Dunkler Krieger, Dystopia, Dystopia II, Enigmatic Unicorn, Feral Shivan, Guy with That Head, Hector Marino, Hoss, Huster, Jacob G, Jana B, Jason, J. Morris, Chromius, Kyle R, Lee K. Long, Legendarius, Lelouch V. Britannia with a Mustache, Lexus Fox, Lord Nishikian Rai, Lord Touch Me, Lofrazer, Merovec, Mr. Shoes, Mr. Tweaker, Michael R, Michael Y, Nope, Oh Hell No, Normal Toad, O'Kill, Overlord General Gasper, Paddy Pantum, Personage, Ruru, Primus 11, Rhinomere, Kyone Karkos P, Shergox's Daddy, Shadow Lightning Wolf, Shrine Keeper, Sir Axolotl, Super Tier Magic Batista Bomb, Supreme Cheese, Staris, Ted, Texas Deer, The Orc Warboss, Rock Ed Smasher, T.E. Wang, Vash Hawkeye, Vegito27, Venture Fanatic, Wilhelm, Zinukai, and Sonagon. Thanks guys. Anyway, have a nice day, and I hope to see you all again soon on my next video.